This is the Ecommerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Welcome to the Ecommerce Braintrust podcast. I'm Julie Spear, Head of Retail Marketplace Services at Acadia, alongside my co-host, Jordan Ripley, Director of Retail Operations. Today, we're joined by Geoffrey Beliard, Senior Director of Product Solutions at Pacvue. Geoffrey has spent decades leading data and analytics teams, both on the brand side at large CPGs, as well as with leading software companies in our industry. For today's episode, we'll be diving into Geoffrey's take on where the industry is heading and how he's leading the product team and roadmap at Pacvue to meet that future. So with that, welcome, Geoffrey. We're really excited to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Julie. Welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Thanks, Geoffrey.
Excellent. We have a lot of ground to cover, so we'll go ahead and dive in. And we'll kind of start with a little bit more about where your focus is at Pacvue. Most people know Pacvue as a retail media management tool, but Pacvue does so much more than that, and you do so much within Pacvue. So as the Senior Director of Product Solutions, can you talk a little bit about the product that you specifically oversee and then how your role fits into the development teams for the products?
Great point. So traditionally Pacvue started, in 2017, 2018 by launching the first Amazon API bid management tool. We have grown that capability to be cross-retailer for all retail media platforms globally. The new product that Pacvue is also known for the past 3 years is Pacvue Commerce, which is a retail operation tool to help you manage your Amazon 1P and Amazon 3P business today. And this is a tool where at the end of the day, media only exists for retail business, right? If your retail business on Amazon is declining, your retail media will be declining consequently. This system this tool is built in the same fashion that your retail media platform will be built. We started with Amazon 1P and 3P because it's the biggest retail media network at the end of the day. And we're going down that route of the Walmart, the Target, the Kroger, the Tesco, the Carrefour of the world. And the way we built our tool is in an interoperable way, meaning we are good at retail media, we are good at retail operation, and those two will work together. But for any other ancillary services and capabilities that a manufacturer or an agency may be using, such as content syndication, market share, their own ERP, we will integrate the solution to provide a single platform to help you manage your business and activate accordingly to the state of your business. So that's the part of the product that I oversee, and I help drive our product development. So I sit between sales and product. That's what product solution is. So interacting with agencies and clients to gather feedback and also lean on my experience to help drive the direction of our organization with respect to retail and media.
That's really helpful. The feedback and sort of how you span the distance between sales and the end customer and then the product team is something I wanted to get into as well, because, you have a lot of experience internal at brand side, leading data teams, leading analytics teams, whether at Kimberly-Clark or Mondelez. And I'm curious because Pacvue is, of course, a company that still serves those brands and manufacturers, but also serves agencies directly. And I'm wondering, how do you balance the needs, which I presume are somewhat different between those two customer types? And then, how much does your brand side background kind of inform that? Like, how do you negotiate those trade-offs?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jordan. So I would say that, leaning on my experience, right, I have it's a very interesting set of experiences that I've accumulated in my career, right? I was a category manager. I led data analytics team across all different retailers. So the mix of this and then working at Amazon for 9 years as well, bring me an perspective of manufacturer, retailer, and now with the agency, understanding that ecosystem. And I would say to the point that you asked with respect of agency versus manufacturers, I think agency, especially, agency like yours, right? When you do more than media, having what I would call niche agency partners is great because it's a one-to-many relationship. Because if I talk with you guys, or if I talk to another niche agency, you work with different categories of product of manufacturers. So the use cases and the pain points that you're incurring are very much the same way if I was talking to one customer at a time.
Okay.
Or being Kimberly-Clark. The size of the manufacturer in my mind is just an indication of the magnitude of the problem that they're having, right? Because ultimately, when you have only 25 ASINs and you're only $2 million in sales, you can focus your manual time or your work on doing this work. But as soon as those SKUs grow in number or one SKU represent $20 million, then you need to have a more robust suite of services and technology to help you drive that business. So I think it's one and the same. It's more of that one-to-many relationship enabling an agency to scale, right? Because at the end of the day, the more clients you have, the more money you make. So if you're able to operationalize more of your workflows from retail and media, then you can service your client better, have more value. And then if you have the right technology partner, then everyone is happy there.
Right. And so it's less like the dichotomy of brand versus agency and more like what is the scale and sophistication of this end customer. And an agency or a large brand will have thousands of ASINs, numerous brands, numerous channels. And so it's like that need that you're having to solve for.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the piece where, to me, like how we get stretched in our software development, especially with niche agencies, is the scale that you provide. Because it to me is it's a scaling problem at the end of the day, because it's the same problem, but you have 150 clients and that depth of ASINs, and you have multiple marketplaces. So it's like multiplying versus traditionally on the manufacturer, you have one team handling one retailer. You have another team handling Walmart. So the need is the same. It's just siloed versus together.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Kind of going a different angle on the same concept here of like, when we consider over the past 4 or 5 years, the fact that retail media networks have exploded, there are so many. And we had a similar conversation with Paul Sonnefeld at Merchant Spring recently about how they kind of consider the idea of going broad versus deep in their product development. And so when we look at this from like a retail media network perspective, you've touched on this a bit in our conversation already. How do you approach this? Are you looking at going super deep, starting with the core networks like Amazon, Walmart? Or do you approach going broad where there's parity of metrics across the long tail of networks? How do you kind of wrestle with the trade-offs of broad versus deep as you're developing specifically on the retail media side of Pacvue?
So on the retail media side of things, I think, it's apparent that everyone is copying Amazon, right? Walmart is the best example of that, right? They've launched their search, DSP, their clean room, AMC or WMC, whatever the name will be. They are copying that piece. So to us, Amazon offer a good blueprint of how to build and scale, both from a retail media, but also from a retail operation. They provide the most data. Walmart is really catching up really quick. So I anticipate within the next year or two, so we'll be on par with Amazon. With respect of going broad and deep, I would say, to echo back to what I was mentioning, it's retail and media. So from an integration standpoint, we believe that we want to be supporting a brand or an agency in a vertical fashion, meaning if there is a retailer point of sales data on a retailer portal and a strong retail media network, that's where we'll see the biggest value. And from a media and retail investment standpoint, if you think of large manufacturers, but also smaller manufacturers, there is a finite amount of resources, human and financial, that they can go after in terms of retail and media. So they will always focus on the biggest scale that those retailers provide. And the media will follow at the end of it, right? If you have a large audience like Amazon, Walmart, and Target, that's going to command a lot of guests going to the store, a lot of media visit on a page, which is monetization to retail media. So I think we'll go, what we have seen, the historical growth of everyone launching their retail media, there's going to be, I think, a taper off of, hey, it's costing us too much or there's not enough margin. So those, I would say, I anticipate the 20 largest retailers in the world having their own retail media network fully baked. And those retailers will have their retailer portal, right? Whether it's Home Depot, Lowe's, like I was mentioning, Tesco, Sainsbury in the UK. in Europe, Carrefour, they will be fully integrated, and that's where we'll be. But we'll start, with the US, which is the biggest, market from a retail media standpoint. I think the 4 or 5 largest retailers will be there.
A quick follow-up on that, because what you outlined makes sense, where there'll be a sort of consolidation around the 15 or 20 retailers that really provide meaningful value. And then there will be the test and learn ones outside of that. But there's also this ecosystem, at least in the media world, of technology providers that sort of are any intermediaries, thinking specifically of like a Citrus and a Criteo, right? Where a retailer can plug that in the back end and then suddenly spin up a retail media network fairly quickly. I'm sure there's more involved in that than just plugging A to B, but what's your perspective on, do you see that continuing to be a large portion of the retail media environment, being those technology providers for the ones that are not as mature as an Amazon and a Walmart?
I think there will be a play because it's similar to, the traditional remnant advertising that back in the day, from a display standpoint, there is a diminishing return for the retailer to actually do this. So Criteo and Citrus, in some form, especially globally, will have a major play. And also those specific networks are growing their capabilities beyond just search. They are providing additional audience-based information, kind of like Trade Desk and also the DSPs of Amazon and Walmart. So there will be a play. Pacvue and other bid management platform integrate those because they also offer that scale outside those big 5. But the budget amount to be spent there, I think, will be limited because of those other retailers, large retailers that will have their own ecosystem, essentially.
Right. So it's a good solution for the long tail and less mature markets where you're deploying less per channel, but in aggregate, a meaningful amount.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and this look at the long tail and budget allocation, that brings into the topic or the discussion the idea of incrementality as well. And with more and more ad placements we're the opportunity, it's not just click, you're bringing in DSP, the need to look at looking beyond kind of last touch attribution, all of that comes together of how do you actually measure incrementality? What is the view on that? How are you approaching it? I know that our team has been working closely with the Pacvue team on your incrementality reporting and making sure that we're building that into our management best practices. But I'm curious about your high level view on incrementality measurement at Pacvue.
Yes. So over the past, 5-6 years, we've seen the growth of retail media, right? Which was initially a byproduct of search advertising, right? And I would say it has operated in a silo for up to now, right? I would say incrementality has been the word of the day for the past year and a half or so. And this is just the nature of media measurement, right? If you think of the traditional MMM, retail media has been outside of this. So I think incrementality is the first step to capture, hey, what am I really driving? With respect to Pacvue, I would say we're a bit late of the game, but kind of by design, because we have built out a more robust methodology versus using one KPI to measure incrementality across multiple retail media network. So what we've done is we've built an Amazon first, because Amazon is the biggest budget that manufacturers spend media on, right? So they want to make sure that on Amazon first, I might be able to measure correctly. So what we've done is started with Amazon, and we're now rolling out other retailer coming Q4 and Q1 and Q2 next year, where you will be able to see cross-retailer media incrementality. What we've built is a different approach of enabling what we call ensemble learning. So it's different technique and algorithm that we use, leveraging the existing data that those retailer media network provide, but also enable the brand and the agency to bring additional information or additional data to enrich that measurement. So if you think of omni-channel sales and share information, so we allow, right, whether you use Circana or Nielsen IQ to help you measure this, we allow you to bring this data and enrich the traditional out-of-the-box incrementality solution that we built. So that ultimately it's not one size fits all. Each category behaves differently. The level of investment, the purchase cycle, the shopper behavior is different. So therefore, that incrementality will be different by category. And that's how we approach this, by partnering with manufacturers and agency to build a more robust model by enabling more and more data to be able to have a more accurate incrementality number.
One additional thought that I feel like the industry is wrestling with in incrementality is like, there's an idea that the more complexity and the more data that you add in, the more reliable the output is. But I think the challenge with that is like to the end user that's then trying to make sense of this data, that where I've like thrown in all of these data sources, right? I've brought in like a Profitero or a Nielsen share sales data, and now I'm like having to explain this. I have an IROAS of 4, and I have to explain that to the end client. How do you think about like making this intelligible when there are all these data sources that come into incrementality? Is that something that like we're just sort of scratching the surface on, or like does Pacvue have like a perspective on this? I'm curious to get your take on that, Geoffrey.
Yes, everyone is starting with scratching the surface at the end of it, right? We have some tools and solutions that came out with having one metric to weigh in your incrementality against. I think one metric is wrong, right? Multiple metrics is more of a robust solution, but not all metrics are being equal. And that's why our approach it's called ensemble learning. Again, it's a French word. I apologize for that. But so it's, again, looking at all the data points that you could provide and then seeing if there is any factors that is actually driving that incrementality up and down. So it's a different technique being used that will be surfacing the metric that are more important for your category. So because ultimately, right, ratings and review, everyone agrees that it helps conversion. But what's the point where all your products have a 4 star and you only get positive reviews? That particular data point kind of loses its weighting and value. So what is the other levers and what's the other attribute that will be driving more than incrementality number? As an example, right, you could also look at especially from a search media standpoint, your competitive keyword, your category keyword, and your branded keyword. If you're Kleenex, or I come from, Kimberly-Clark, if you're Kleenex is the category. Mm-hmm. So the incrementality number of the word Kleenex is close to 0, right? But if you type, I don't know, facial tissue, which nobody searched for facial tissue, right, the incrementality would be probably higher because if you convert on that keyword, there is more value to this, right? So having that approach of being able to dissect the data and then use different attribute or metrics to help you drive to better incrementality number, I think is the goal here.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And the other thing that I feel like we're wrestling with is there's sort of two approaches to get to the end goal of like, I'm trying to give the right weight and value to the activities that I'm doing on the channel, which is oftentimes media. But as you pointed out, it could be, I've improved my ratings and reviews, or I've improved my content, or that sort of thing, and the incrementality. But from a media standpoint, something that we've invested a lot at Acadia and also in tandem with Pacvue is clean room technology and sort of the ability to ingest a lot of data sources, unify those together, and then understand, like, even at the shopper level, what is this person's behavior? Are they net new to my brand? That sort of thing. AMC, of course, is a solution that's pretty baked at this point. Of course, there are new features coming out with it all the time. Walmart's still in the early stages of their clean room tech. But you have a perspective on this, of course, working with a lot of the clean room partners directly across retailers. Like, will we continue to see a ton of clean room offerings that are specific to a retailer, or do we see consolidation around this, around a few? Is there a sort of like clean room tech that exists outside of retailers that then people license in a sort of Criteo and Citrus fashion? I'm just curious, like, between brand, retailer, and software providers like Pacvue, like, what does this ecosystem of clean room tech look like a year from now?
So I think the best analogy that we'll do is what we discussed with the traditional search retail media, right? I think if you think from an audience standpoint, retailers, like the biggest retailers, know more about us from a purchase and transaction standpoint than any other type of media network that would piece together different attributes about you by purchasing auto data, financial services, like what Meta is doing as well. In my mind, if you start with transaction and start to append additional data source through an Amazon AMC, a clean room, or through other clean room, you will have a better sense of what else you purchase, who is that person, and be able to retarget based on that affinity, right? Because your credit card information and what you shop for travel is a good indicator of the type of product that you would buy in terms of clothing, in terms of, consumer electronics.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that need of, from a clean room standpoint, the bigger the retailer, the more likely they will have, right? So the biggest retailer, because they have, like Amazon has 300 million shoppers every single month. Walmart has 100, they reach, I think, 200 million households every week. So ultimately, that's rich data. It's stitching this information together, offering a platform to be able to, do AMC-like work, and then starting to retarget through DSP and other type of activities. I would say, so that's in my mind where we're going to go. There will be a software layer similar to traditional search retail media, because ultimately it's a one-to-many relationship, right? Having to acquire subject matter expertise in, Amazon clean room, Walmart clean room, Target clean room, like the Criteo clean room, it's going to be difficult. So, and those particular retailers and media network are very much now API first mindset, because they understand that there is a software layer that's needed, even though they would like to maximize their revenue by taking everything directly from the brand. But they understand that is needed in some fashion. So I think there will always be a play for a solution like Pacvue to help enable agencies and manufacturers to scale across all.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Moving from the sort of measurement side of thing, which is interesting, but ultimately, like, we have to activate against those like signals and measurement. And one thing, I personally sit on a bunch of software demos all the time just to understand what's in the industry. And I feel like they all sort of boil down to a key value prop of like, we get a lot of data, we get it really fast, and then we use AI to make some magic work, and then your ads do better, right? That's the sort of high level around it. But one thing that
initial marketing, right?
Yeah,
That's
3 slides. I'm gonna short sell Zach and Kyle on their ability to sell things. But I like the thing that I think we also try to communicate clearly, like when we pitch brands, is, there's a spectrum. And on one end of that spectrum is the humans doing a lot. Like maybe they get some data from the platform directly, but then they're having to parse through that data and action and activate on it accordingly. And then in the middle of that spectrum is like there's a tool that's surfacing recommendations and insights and intelligence and that sort of thing. And then the person is ultimately activating on accordingly. And then the far other end of that spectrum is like there's a black box, a lot of data flows in, you say I want a ROAS of 10, and then you just sort of sit back and let the machine do its work. So obviously, I know you're not focused entirely on the media management, but I think the same philosophy applies to the commerce side of the business, which is like, how much do we automate this? How much do we want a human to be involved in this? Like, how do you think about that? And what's sort of Pacvue's philosophy on like where the right point is on the spectrum?
So I think I'll tie him back to the level of sophistication of a manufacturer. So, right, the bigger the revenue, the more control that this person or that company will want to have. So in a spectrum of, fully AI, black box automation and AI to all the way to rule-based and control that you want to have, I would say a P&G, a KC will be more on the rule-based kind of approach versus a manufacturer that's, selling, 150 products, making $1 to $2 million a year, will want to have an always-on automated AI based on target sales goal on ROAS and so forth. So I would say that, and then Pacvue here, where we land is we have both options, right? And then we have an AI base that you could, have your bid management being done that way, all the way to create advertising rules specifically based on media performance. But as it pertains to retail, right, to commerce, is bringing additional levers such as weeks of coverage, your inventory, your content, your ratings and review, whether you own the buy box or not, right? Because some of those particular ad products are not aware of buy box ownership. So how do you manage those additional signals through creative rules that Pacvue enables to be able to drive your business? And especially when you think of, I'll take the brands that I was mentioning, P&G, right? Or Purina that I also work on. So those particular manufacturers have multiple brands competing against each other, right? Tide and Gain. Purina, you have multiple cat product and dog product. On their end, there is the right to win, right? At P&G, we all know Tide always win, right? Purina, cat chow always win versus other products. So it's the ability to create smart rules based on the profitability profile of the brand. So because Tide is always going to win, on that specific keyword, there will be a bid management rule that will be set this way. So and that's part of the benefit or the value of Pacvue has gained among large manufacturers, is that high level of customization of advertising rule for specific brands that compete within the same category, because they all have the same audience and the same keyword.
Right.
So having the ability to be able to layer those rules so that you compete to a point, but after that, tide wins.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Well, going a little further, like that is a specific value that Pacvue offers. So let's do one more question today, focused on the specific value of Pacvue, especially you're in a crowded space. There's a lot of competitors that offer, what their USP is versus Pacvue's. And, Jordan and I have talked with you in the past about like Pacvue, essentially, you're focused on 4 core pillars with media activation, commerce data, category insights, and then data as a service layer. With all the players in your space that, there's the all-in-one account management solutions like Helium 10 for like a SMB, but then you also have companies like we mentioned, like Stackline and also Commerce IQ that have a lot of distinct but interrelated products. How do you see your 4 core pillars at Pacvue differentiating Pacvue in this space and kind of breaking through the noise?
So that's a great question. So I would say I would even distill it from 4 to 2 at the end of the day, right? Because ultimately, retail media and retail operations, data as a service is basically the data layer of the 2. So this third pillar or 2.5 pillar, I don't know what to call it, but, is a byproduct of the other 2 main pillar. And it came from large manufacturers that were trying to leverage their existing partner, like Pacvue, because we need retail data and media data to power those 2 applications. It's like, hey, why don't you share the data? And then we came up with a pipeline and the product as a byproduct. The competitive insights, I think, is also a way to enrich your media execution, but also to explain your retail business, right? So I would say it's also integrated into both. So that's why I'd like to focus on, or Pacvue focuses on the retail media execution and the retail operation aspect of things. And the core differentiation is, I'd rather do 2 things very well than 10 things average, or, too well, and then the rest is not good. The additional piece is from a manufacturer standpoint, and you as well as a shopper, if you go somewhere and somebody says, I can solve all your problem, here's the product, you're going to be a little bit skeptical because you have done your research, and if you like cooking, you like certain utensils, you don't want to go to KitchenAid and buy all your product from KitchenAid. So here at Pacvue, our belief is retail media and retail operation. We are more of an open ecosystem and interoperability. So this is where we know that manufacturers vet their data sources and capabilities, right? I was a capability manager. From a content syndication, we were using Salsify and Syndigo. So if you come and Pacvue would come and say, hey, I can solve your syndication problem, and then the question that's going to be asked is, hey, can you manage content syndication on Piggly Wiggly store? And then there is no retail media over there. There is no retail operation there. So we have no right to win there. So this is where we believe that integrated with the data currency that the manufacturer or the agency has selected is a better play for us to be able to work successfully with those 2 constituencies and bring more value to the existing capabilities that they already invest in versus trying to sell in a new capability. And I think that's the major differentiation with the Commerce IQ and the CIQ and the Stackline of the world is in my mind, they are trying to solve too many problems all at once versus doubling down on what they do very well, right? And I'll come back to my experience at Amazon, right? My SVP always said, double down on what you do well and invest little on what you don't do well, because you want to keep your customer happy, constantly innovate on behalf of them, and then improve your area of improvement over time. So I think that's where, in terms of where we sit as an organization, is doubling down on those 2 products and then connecting for the rest of the capabilities. And those capabilities would be, ERP on manufacturing, content syndication, market share. Those would be the primary one.
I think this is why we value you so much as a partner is we're like-minded in our view, yet from a managed services agency partner perspective of like being clear on where we are strong, double down there, and then invest in partnerships just to augment where you're not as strong. Don't try to be everything to everyone because it won't work.
And I think this piece is very much of a human approach as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just software and buying and partnership. It's like as a person, you want to improve yourself, continue, the growth mindset and how you invest in yourself, in your health, in your learning is similar approach. So I think that fits. It's a culture thing in my mind. That's what you're speaking of, Julie, and I think that's Pacvue culture. And at the end of the day, we believe in our people, we believe in our software, we invest there, and then after that, we partner.
Yes. Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly there. And, we are longtime partners. And so we love to just see where you guys are innovating and developing and partner with you in those developments as well. So as you continue to grow in the areas of operations and media, we'll be excited to have you back on for another conversation about what's new and where you see things changing in our space as well. So appreciate your time today, Geoffrey. It was a great conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, John and Julie. That was enjoyable. Have a good day.